Hello and welcome to the first video on Greenfoot. This video is covering the startup, so we're looking at how to create a world and also how we can add objects into our world as well. So in order to start up, I'm going to be loading up Greenfoot. I'm going to be using the version 2.4.2. This is a standard version, so make sure you're using this version in order to follow along. So I'll be loaded up with a screen like this. The first thing which I'm going to do is go to the top left and go Scenario and New. Now, you can name your scenario whatever you want. The most important thing is you do not call it Greenfoot. Call it whatever you like. I'm going to call mine something like Technocamps Technocamps Habitat. It will open up a new window just like this. Okay. So our first task is to create a world. In order to do that, I'm going to go over to the right where I can see my two superclasses, World and Actor. I'm going to right click on World and I'm going to select New Subclass. This is basically going to create us a class, which is going to be a subclass of World. I'm going to name it a sensible name called Habitat. Notice how I'm giving it a capital letter. And I'm going to give it a sensible background such as cell. Okay, so you will notice after you click OK that nothing really happens. You can see that this thing has appeared up in the top right, so my habitat class is there, but you can see it's in hashes, and nothing really has appeared up on the screen. It says use the compile button to compile your scenario. When I use this button in the bottom right, which is compile, you'll notice that the hashes go away, and also my world has now appeared. Okay. The second part of creating a world is also making sure it is within the right dimensions. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click on my habitat and then I'm going to go to Open Editor. This will load up my editor for the code which is in Habitat. So we are now editing the Habitat code. You can see here I've got something here which says Super 600 401. This basically is used to say how big the world should be. The 600, 400 is how many cells, and the 1 is determining the size of the cells. We don't particularly want that. We're going to change these values to be 8 by 8, and I want each cell to be 60 pixels wide. Now, I'm going to click this compile button in the top left. I'm going to close this screen, and as you can see, my world is now how I want it, 8 by 8. And each one of these grids is 60 pixels. So the next thing that I want to do is add an object into the world. So the first thing I'm going to do is add in an actor class. So from actor, I'm going to go into new subclass. And because I'm basing this off a habitat, I'm going to first introduce a producer. So I'm going to call it producer. And I'm going to find something which is relatively the right sort of thing for a producer. There you go, grass. Okay, again, you can see that it's not really appeared. I can click compile. Also, again, it's not appeared up on the screen. The hashes have gone away, but it's not appearing up on my screen. That is because we've got to add this actor into the world. In order to do that, I'm going to have to go into my habitat, and I'm going to have to go within the code. So I'm first going to have to define the object. So I'm going to have to define an object of producer. So in order to do that, I'm going to say producer. Then I'm going to give it a name. Grass1 is a sensible name. Equals new producer. Notice how I'm naming it exactly how it is in here. I've got capital P up by here for my class name. I'm also going to give it a capital name by here. The objects within the convention, we typically just name them in lowercase. So this is a class, and this is where the object name will be. I then going to use this function add object. It takes 3 things within these 2 curly brackets, and the first thing it takes is the thing which we want to add in. So it would be grass1. It then takes an X position and a Y position. Because we're using an 8 by 8 grid, I'm just going to use the values 3 and 6. Now, I can either click this compile button by here, or the one down the bottom right. Oh, and I've got an error. The one thing which I did miss, and typically you will notice this, is it's saying The semicolon is expected, so I'm going to add one there, and it seems fine. And as you can see, my grass has appeared up on the world. Now, if I wanted to add numerous different grass objects, what I can do is go into my habitat, and instead of creating new classes again and again and again, I can just use this code. Producer grass 2, because I'm going to give it a new name, equals new producer. And then again, add object grass 2, this time to the world. I'm going to give it some different coordinates, 1, 6. Then if I compile my code, you'll notice that I've got another grass appearing. So I don't need to create another class. I'm just simply creating another object of the class. I can do the same thing again. This time I'm going to copy the code. Grass 3. And I'm going to give it some different values again, 4, 4. I click compile. And there we go again. That is how you add objects into the world.